The following program is being brought to you on the Voice America Health and Wellness Channel. For more information about our network and to check our additional show hosts and topics of interest, please visit voiceamericahealth.com. The Voice America Talk Radio Network is the worldwide leader in live Internet talk radio. Visit voiceamerica.com. The views and ideas expressed on the following program are strictly those of the host or guests and do not necessarily reflect the views and ideas held by the Voice America Talk Radio Network, its staff, and management.
Welcome to Kids Health Revolution Radio with host Deborah Morgan. On our show, we'll discuss natural and alternative health approaches to help children who have chronic health concerns. You'll hear from professional health experts and fellow parents who have used these proven methods to improve the health of their children, and you can too. Now, here's Deborah Morgan.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome back to Kids Health Revolution Radio. I am very glad, as always, very glad to be here with you, but I think especially glad today to be back on the airwaves with you after this little break that I've taken. And a lot has been going on around here. It's been kind of a crazy whirlwind. As many of you know, we took a big trip, a family trip to Africa for 3 weeks, which was amazing. And I had talked a little bit about how I had some concerns about taking such a big trip with a 7-year-old, and then, of course, with our dietary needs and concerns. But all in all, I have to tell you, it was really great. And getting to embark on such a grand adventure, really, with my mom, my husband, and my son was nothing short of an absolute gift. And people always say that Africa is like a bucket list, once in a lifetime kind of trip. And now that I've been there, I have to say, I really, really hope that's not true, because we all want to go back. My son talks about it, asks about it. When are we going back? At least once a week. My 75-year-old mother, this is her second trip to Africa in 5 years, and she was actually planning her next trip before we even left Africa this time. So she loves it. It's amazing. If you ever get the chance to go, grab it, take it, and go with both hands, because it is so beautiful. The landscape is incredible. If you do the safari stuff, the animals, of course, breathtaking. But for me, I think the best part was the people. They were so wonderful. They were warm and welcoming and so happy to share their culture, their country, and even their history with us. It was just absolutely everything we could have asked for and more. And I cannot recommend it enough. And even my biggest concern, which was, of course, the diet part, actually worked out pretty well. You know, for the most part, we were able to maintain a gluten-free, mostly whole foods diet throughout the trip. I did make a few exceptions, I'll be honest, that I normally wouldn't make when I'm here. Like a few times, all of the lodges and places we went to had advanced notice that we were on a specific dietary protocol. And so they knew we could not have gluten, corn, and soy. I was very strict and specific about that. So a few times we got some gluten-free waffles or a pancake, and it's not normally something that I would have us eat, especially when we're on a gut healing protocol. But because they didn't have the corn and the gluten or the soy in them, I knew they weren't going to be genetically modified. They made them with chickpeas and some rice. I felt, okay, you know, it's an exception. It's going to be okay. My son's been on a gut healing protocol for quite a long time. I was pretty sure we're at a place that he could take, you know, a little bit of a hit to his digestive system and come through it okay. So we did that and we enjoyed it. And hey, we had to eat, right? It's what was there. But other than that, it was really pretty easy to stick to our usual routine. Other than those few exceptions, it really wasn't that hard. So what I'm working on now is to put together a show for you guys that's going to help you get your head around how to travel when you're doing something like this for your child? How can you go on these amazing family holidays and have all the beautiful experiences and live your life to the fullest and still be able to do some amazing things to help your child with their health? It is possible. It's absolutely possible. It doesn't have to be an either or situation. It can be both. And I want to show you how that can be done. So keep listening for that show. Actually, even better, subscribe to the show. So you can go to iTunes and you can subscribe on the iTunes page. On the Voice America page, there's also an option to subscribe to the show. And that way, you're not going to miss anything. You're going to get all the information that you want. So since I've been back, I've been working really hard at booking you some amazing guests to the show, and I am honestly really thrilled with the lineup that we have so far. We're going to be making Stories of Hope and Triumph a regular feature of the show, because this is something that I'm hearing from you guys. You're listening to those shows a lot, and I know from experience that hearing other people's success is some of the best inspiration and the best ways to get motivated to jump in and start taking action for our own kids. Okay, so we're going to talk to more amazing moms who are ready to share their story with us. And then we also have some more of the great education and information coming your way. We're going to be hosting a show on the powers of fermenting your own food, answer all your questions about that process. We'll be covering some of the important lab tests you might consider doing for your child. So what are those tests? What do they tell you? How is that going to be helpful to you in helping your child? And how do you get access to those kinds of tests? We're going to do an interview, and I'm so excited about this one, with one of the industry's leaders in nutritional genomics. So basically, that's how genetic testing can show us what's going on functionally and nutritionally in the body. It's a relatively new tool, but it is amazing. And I've used it with my son, and really it blows me away what's possible with it. So I want you to know about it and get all the good details about that. I'm going to be interviewing authors, documentary producers, some more doctors, and other experts that are really doing fantastic work to put the power into your hands, right? This is what this show is about, is putting the power into your hands so that you can help your child, so that you have all the tools that you need to make a difference in their health. So make sure you take just a second, subscribe to the show so that you don't miss any of that good stuff that we have coming up. Now, before we jump in with today's guest that I'm so excited to talk to, I just want to take a second and talk about community. And I'm pretty sure, I shouldn't assume, but I'm pretty sure that my guest today will echo the sentiment that having a group of people who get you, at least somebody, one person even who gets you, that's on a similar path to finding help for their child, come hell or high water, somebody who's really on a mission, it's so important in this journey. And I can't emphasize that enough. I've talked about it before. I've said that I would not be where I am today. I wouldn't be sitting here talking to you, bringing this show to you. My son would not be where he is with his health if it wasn't for a few very important mom friends who knew what I was going through and who just got it. Because honestly, it takes courage. Excuse the expression, but it takes cojones, right? To abdicate for your child and not just simply bow down to the system. So we need to stand with each other, right? And be that support and that source of encouragement for one another. If you listen to the show and you like what you hear, even if you've not taken any action yet, no matter where you are in this process, if you're listening, you're part of this revolutionary community. And since we're not all together in the same town and not even in the same country, this goes out internationally. I've got people tuning in from Africa, yay, and from Australia. My guest today is from the UK. So as much as I would love for us to be able to come together and connect and, just sit down and share a coffee and a tea and support each other, that's not possible. at this point, hey, let's put it out there. Maybe someday we could do a Kids Health Revolution retreat and we could all get together and support each other. But for now, we have to use the tools that are available to us. And we have this wonderful tool called the internet. And it's enabling us to connect with people in ways that we never could before. And it's empowering us in ways that we never had accessible to us before. So I've set up a community for us within the Kids Health Revolution website. So you can do it right now. If you're inspired, while you're listening, just pop over to www.kidshealthrevolution.com. At the top on the bar, you'll see free resources. Click on that. You can become a member. It's really quick, just your name and your email address. And then you have access to the free information, which is great. There's some great stuff there. But I think most importantly, you're part of this growing community. Okay, so we have a place that we can hang out together, a safe place that we can talk to each other and support each other using the forum boards that are there, using the tools that are available to us now. And I think that's the best way that we can come together right now. And I know that you're busy. I get that. I'm in it with you. I'm swimming in that same ocean. But it doesn't have to take long. Just tell us who you are. Tell us what you're struggling with. Ask a question. Pop in and support people. And I think, it's more meaningful probably than the time that we spend when we go down the rabbit hole of checking our Facebook status, right? Boy, that can really suck us in for a long time. And maybe it's not as productive as it could be if we were really connecting with people that are supporting us and encouraging us. So now, on the topic of inspiration and support, I'd like to now introduce my guest for today. Her name is Isabelle. She's an amazing mom. She's joining me again today from the UK, and we're talking about her journey to help her daughter with debilitating eczema. Isabelle is a certified naturopath, certified nutrition therapist, as well as a fellow certified GAPS practitioner. She has a private practice in the UK and is passionate about helping people get healthy through natural ways so their bodies can be all they can be. And I love that. That's beautiful. You can find Isabelle at www.trueholisticnutrition.com. That's trueholisticnutrition.com. And I am so honored to have her here today to share her amazing story of success with us. Hello, Isabelle, and welcome to the show.
Hello, Deborah. Thank you very much for having me on.
Thank you. I'm so glad that we were able to organize this with the time difference and all of that stuff. It's great. So let's jump in, Isabelle, and maybe you can talk a little bit, first of all, about how your daughter's eczema began, because I think it's important for parents to understand that something that is kind of seemingly benign at first can morph into something different in the future.
Yeah, absolutely. She started having some very dry eyelids when she was about 2. Mm-hmm. And so we put some cortisone cream and then it just went away. And it came back on the eyelids again 3 years later, as well as, the usual places like inside of the arms and the back of the legs. Mm-hmm. We did the same thing, put some cortisone cream on, and then it disappeared for a few years and everything. She didn't have any more dry patches. But when she was 11 and a half, nearly 12 actually, came back with a vengeance. And it just started in all those places again. And then it gradually overcame her whole body slowly, little by little. Mm-hmm. So that was pretty terrifying. Yes. Pretty terrifying. So,
wow.
Yeah.
So she was pretty much eczema free for quite a long time, and then it just kind of really came back, like a house on fire.
Yes, I think there were several triggers. I think obviously, the hormones and everything, but she changed schools a year before. Mm-hmm. So that was probably a little bit stressful. And I guess that the problems that she had when she was little became worse as she was growing up, really. Because we didn't address those, like the gut and everything. So,
right.
Yeah.
So, the gut was still there, and then you threw, the stress kind of on top of it became, maybe the straw,
sorry
right?
to interrupt. Yeah, no, her stomach was, her belly was getting bigger. Actually, she had a very swollen belly from the age of probably like 8, 9, and it was just gradually becoming like bigger, and that caused some concerns. I didn't know what it was, so I felt really concerned about it. Yeah. But I guess that she, I learned that later that there was an explanation, like few explanations actually.
Yes, but, yeah, which we will definitely explore. At that time, when her eczema became so aggressive, did you use some of the cortisone creams and things again, or what was your experience then?
Well, basically I put her on a dairy-free and gluten-free diet, and we went to see a dermatologist and to get some cream and to I really wanted to work on the symptoms and work with the repairing the gut at the same time, but it was quite difficult because no cream was working, and it was actually making her worse. So it was basically like trial and error, and I was not ready to start any drastic diet like the GAPS, for example, because I just thought, this is crazy, I can't do it.
Yeah.
I don't know if you felt the same, but it's just overwhelming when you think about it as a mom, so.
Yep, I get it. I did. I definitely felt that way. It took me quite a long time to work my way up to it. And like you, we started on gluten-free, dairy-free, and then we worked into sort of a paleo style diet, and then eventually worked our way into the GAPS. So I'm familiar with that story for sure.
Oh, yes.
So one thing I'd like to ask you about, Isabelle, is, I was reading your blogs on your story, and I should mention to the listeners as well, if you'd like to read her blog, it's if you go to her website, you can find her story, where she's really very honestly sort of journaled, I think, right, about how you were going through the process as it was playing out. And one of the things that really jumped out at me, you wrote, I know eczema is my daughter's illness, but it's also mine somehow. I wish I could distance myself from it, but most of the time I can't. I live with it every day. And I think it's such a powerful statement. So can you tell us a little bit about that experience?
Yeah, I think that, when you're a mom, you become a lioness with your kids, and basically, you would do anything to make your children better, and the fight therein becomes your fight, and that's how I felt. And I felt like it was my fight, but actually I had to let her also take responsibility for this, and that kind of balance was very hard for me, because I could not replace her. I could not take her place and take the illness from her. Yeah. And so that's also why I wrote the blog. It was just a matter of, for me to sort of express the hurt and the pain that I was feeling, and trying to understand what my limits were as far as the illness was concerned, And it's really hard because, she was only 12 when that started, but she went through all her teenage years, more or less, fighting that illness. So right. It's really hard, and you want to protect them, and you want to make everything better, but you can't. So, and if you take responsibility for that illness that isn't yours, then you are preventing the child from getting better as well. Right. So so that was my sort of it was my pain at the time, finding that balance.
I get that. Absolutely. Yeah. And I like your analogy with the lioness. It definitely comes out in us, right?
Yes.
But I think it's such an important thing that you're mentioning there, especially, with the age of your daughter, that she be able to take responsibility for this herself, right? Especially at that age, you cannot just be imposing this on them. It has to be it has to be their journey.
Yes.
So I think that's really an important message. So
Yeah,
Isabelle,
that's
we
why
have
I'm so
to.
grateful. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, that's okay. No worries. We have to pop off for a quick break. And when we get back, we will continue talking with Isabelle and hear more of her inspiring story.
Your life, your health, your network. You're listening to Voice America Health and Wellness.
Do you have a child with chronic illness, autoimmune condition, or mental health issue? In just 7 weeks, you can start improving your child's health naturally. Deborah Morgan, the creator of Kids Health Revolution, will show you how to transform your family to a gut healing protocol in just 7 weeks, without all the time-consuming guesswork and hair-pulling frustration. All it takes is one small change each week to get there. Go to kidshealthrevolution.com for more details.
What causes us to be sick? We're not talking about the actual illness or the scientific cause of illnesses. We're talking about your body and health. Listen for the healing whisper of return to peace. Each week, host Dr. Marianne Chase shows you how to listen to your heart to identify poor health, stress, and disease. You'll learn how to heal energetically and spiritually, as well as physically. It's time to depend less on the drugs and more on the heart. The Healing Whisper airs live every Friday at 11 a.m. Eastern Time, 8 a.m. Pacific on Voice America Health and Wellness.
Your life, your health, your network. You're listening to Voice America Health and Wellness.
This is Kids Health Revolution Radio with Deborah Morgan. To reach the program today, please call 1-866-472-5792. That's 1-866-472-5792. Or send an email to Deborah@DeborahMorganConsulting.com. Now, back to Kids Health Revolution Radio.
Hello and welcome back. We are here today talking with Isabelle. My guest is sharing with us, very generously sharing with us her story of hope and of triumph in helping her daughter with some, I would call it pretty severe eczema. And just before the break, we were just chatting a little bit about, the struggle with watching our children suffer, with anything with their health. And, I think any mom can identify with that. My son, his condition, he has vitiligo, as I've mentioned, and his condition is not, it's not something that necessarily affects him day to day because his white spots on his skin are hidden. It's not something that everybody can see. But, I really identify with what Isabelle was saying about not taking it on as your own condition. And now that he's getting older and he's 8, he turns 8 on Friday, I'm really trying to help him learn to take some of this, the responsibility in some way, and understand that the choices that he makes are going to affect his health and his life moving forward. And striking the balance of being able to do that without scaring him, right? Without making him paranoid about the things that he puts into his body, but really, trying to make that connection between, what's in our environment and what we eat and his health. So I really appreciate you sharing, the balance and trying to strike that with your daughter. And I'm curious as to her having been, older, a preteen and then a teenager. How was that for you? Was it difficult to convince her to try and use a dietary approach, or how did that go?
It was, she was, at the time I decided to do the GAPS, she was already very sick. She was fed up, and we've always had a very sort of strong relationship and very honest. And I came home after listening to Natasha Campbell McBride talk about the GAPS diet, her book, and how she helped her son with autism. And I basically said to my daughter, what if I told you that, we can get rid of your eczema? I don't know when, but I know it's going to be tough and it's going to be a struggle, but I can guarantee you that at the end of that journey, you will be eczema free. And she said, okay, what is it about? So I explained about the GAPS diet, and she said, okay, my life is over. And I said, well, your life is already over.
Right. Good point.
Because of what you're going through now. So, it could only get better. And she said, okay, I'm in. Great. Yeah. And then we started the diet, and she was a complete sugar addict. But we had a few challenging weeks where she was, her mood swings were quite tough. She was in a bad mood, and she was very, deprived of sugar. So imagine what that does to the body and to the mind.
Of course.
But there were ups and downs, but she just stuck with it. She stuck with it all the way.
Awesome.
She's amazing.
What a strong gal. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Absolutely amazing.
That's great. And I think it's what you say, she said, my life is over, and you're pointing out to her, it already is, because she was barely living life at that point, right? She was so affected by her situation. Yeah. And oftentimes that's where we have to get, I know for adults, oftentimes they have to hit that rock bottom before they're willing to take that kind of drastic step. And sometimes that happens with our kids too. So yeah, and definitely for her to be able to make that connection that, okay, what have I got to lose, right? We might as well try it.
Yeah, I'm really lucky that she trusts me, and she also trusted me as a nutritionist.
Great.
So yeah, so she knew that if I offered that diet, it meant that it would work.
You weren't doing it lightly. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, exactly. But it took a long time. It took a really long time.
Mm-hmm. Now, as I understand it, you were, at the time when your daughter first flared up like she did, you were studying nutrition and naturopathy. Is that right?
Yeah, I was. Yep.
Mm-hmm. Isn't that great?
Which was great. Oh, yeah, fantastic.
Yeah, great timing. Yeah, and so fortunate for your daughter.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Mm-hmm. And that's how the GAPS diet came into my life, really.
Mm-hmm. Came onto your radar through that.
Absolutely. Yep.
Mm-hmm. Wow. Well, that was definitely a fortunate circumstance for sure. So I know that you mentioned before you started the diet, you were doing the cortisone creams and things. And that wasn't, doing a lot. It did when she was younger, but when she had the major breakout, it wasn't helping. And you had tried the dairy-free, gluten-free approach. What was your experience with that?
Basically, it was just, you mean with my daughter?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was, she was a bit better, I have to say, but no major improvement. I was a bit disappointed, actually, because I was expecting more symptoms to improve, and it didn't that much. I mean, she was saying that she felt better inside, but outside there was no improvement. There was nothing. So I thought, it was great, but I thought that she needed a lot more than that, something drastic, like a complete gut repair protocol.
A complete reset, yeah.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
How long were you gluten and dairy free before you transitioned?
Probably 4 months.
Okay.
4 months, so not a long time, but at the time, I was a bit weak in... I was trying a lot of things, and I was not sure where I wanted to go, with her illness. I was trying a few things here, a few things there, but, I was doing like some patchwork healing, but nothing like really deep. And maybe had I been tougher on the gluten and the dairy-free diet, she would have improved. But at the time, I didn't feel like I was ready to go into that direction. So
we have to start somewhere.
Yeah, I was moving forward and backward and forward and backward, So it just it's a try and error thing.
Yes, absolutely.
I had to be confident,
Yeah, and we have to get to the right place and be in the right headspace and all of that to take on such a drastic change, for sure.
Yes, definitely.
Usually, oftentimes when I work with clients who have children that they're trying to help them with their health and they're not quite ready to dive in with both feet into something like the GAPS or paleo diet, we do start off with the gluten and the dairy-free. And like you said, oftentimes there are some small improvements, sometimes even more than that, depending on the child and what's going on for them. But one thing, that really stands out for me when you talk about that is the not, I don't know if strict is the right word, but not being completely online with it. And I can say from my experience when we did gluten and dairy free, for some reason, I didn't take it quite as seriously as when we went into a stricter, more paleo GAP style diet. So, there would be exceptions happening too often. So we'd go to a restaurant and he'd have French fries. And of course, it was cooked in the oil with all of the other stuff that had the gluten. And I just was not making the connection at that point that was not helpful, right? That was it's still triggering his body too much. And so, we weren't seeing results.
Yeah, I can relate to that completely.
Yeah, I don't know. It's funny. I think it seems a little too gluten-free and dairy-free is so important, but I think, and maybe when done really right, could be a little bit more powerful than it is the way that we tend to do it.
Yes, it's the grain-free as well. I mean, I should probably have done a grain-free diet, and that's how I ended up on the GAPS anyway. So yeah, I think we learn as we go along, really.
Exactly. Yeah. And we don't know what we don't know, right? And until we know it. So
that's true.
Yeah. So, that's just something for people that are listening out there. If you have taken that first step and decided to go gluten-free and dairy-free, it's an amazing first step, and don't feel like you're not doing enough. It's a great place to start. But just try and really do it in the most whole foods, healthful kind of way that you can, and realize that a little bit of exposure does make a difference, especially when you're in that healing stage.
Yeah, it's so true. And all the processed gluten-free breads and products that you find out there, they're culprits as well. They make things so much worse.
That's right. Yeah, they're no better, if not worse, right?
No, exactly. I agree.
In the UK, what are most of your gluten-free flours and things made from?
We have a lot of it is rice, and I don't really like it because rice is still kind of gluten-like as far as I'm concerned. So we have brown rice, white rice. We have quinoa as well, which is not that bad. We have coconut flour, but it's so difficult to cook with it because it's so fluffy.
Yes.
Basically, ground almonds, and that's about it, really. You've got gluten-free, already made mixes, but usually there's some kind of grains that are not GAPS accepted. So it's quite hard, but yeah.
So I think it's really important if you could maybe share with our listeners why rice can be kind of gluten-like, as well as corn and soy can be sort of, I call it cross-reactive.
Well, yeah, the body recognizes them as gluten, and rice replaces wheat and gluten in a lot of diets, but it becomes like a dough in the body, and it basically creates an inflammatory reaction anyway, and it's sometimes it's contaminated with metals, with arsenic, sometimes with cadmium, and you never know what you're eating, really. And I don't think that rice is necessary in the diet anyway. So yeah, it's been a bit difficult for my children because I don't really have rice in the house. But I've noticed that we're way less bloated if we don't eat, those foods really.
It's interesting because I know there's a lot of talk about rice in terms of it being the resistant starch, so it being the probiotic, and some people having some really great experiences with that. But then on the other side of it, I just heard the other day from a colleague something that she was listening to, a summit that she was listening to, a neurologist talking about how they have identified how for some people with neurodegenerative conditions, so anything that's neurological, the rice protein can cross-react in the body, and the body recognizes it as an antigen and so attacks it, but specifically in the brain. So that's pretty serious for anybody who has, any sort of neurological health concern.
Yeah, absolutely. For autoimmune diseases and all those illnesses. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I read that as well in the Lyme Summit. Somebody talked about it in the Chronic Lyme Summit. Yes.
There you go. Yeah. So it's out there. So, and that's, I think, just further emphasis for how when we're talking about nutritional approaches, we have to be careful not to say that everybody can benefit from exactly one protocol, but we do need to be sort of specific and individual about what's going on with that person specifically and what they need, rather than trying to paint it all with one brush. Would you agree with that?
I completely agree. And I decided not to give kefir or raw milk to my daughter when she was on the GAPS. Just because of her being quite sensitive to dairy. So she would have the fermented foods, but she would not have the kefir or the raw milk and pasteurized cheeses. Right.
Yeah, I did the same thing for the same reason. Yeah. My son is sensitive to dairy, so we kept it out. And in fact, I've worked with a little boy who has quite bad eczema, and he was doing the GAPS intro diet, and we ended up taking him off of the fermented foods because the histamine was turning out to be an issue, and that helped. So
yes,
so it is definitely
exactly the same initially. Yes.
Was she? Okay.
Yes.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So was she able to? You said initially, was she able to overcome that over time?
Yes. We've worked on that slowly but surely, but she cannot have fermented foods every day, but she can have them every other day, and just a little bit. But because I think it's because she's scared, to be honest, because of the reactions that she got with the fermented foods when she was sick. I think it creates some kind of post-traumatic stress syndrome response.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, that self-fulfilling prophecy sort of thing.
Yes,
yeah.
Exactly. So, but she will eat it because she knows it's good for her, and she can feel how good she feels after eating it. So, it's still that balance that we need to be aware of.
Yeah. And that's one thing, as a mom or as a parent, doing this with your child, you need to really rely on your powers of observation. You need to really be observing and testing. And I think you might disagree with me, but I think we really need to trust our instincts to a certain degree too. Would you say? I
could not agree more. I always say, trust your gut, because your gut is the truth, is your truth. And that's why I always trusted my daughter's gut. When she would tell me that she would not want to eat that food, then I would stop giving it to her, because, she said, I don't know exactly what's wrong with it, but I can feel like it's not good for me, it's not right for me, and I would just, leave it.
Very interesting, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so not only our instincts, but their instincts as well, right?
Yes, definitely. Yeah, they know their body. I mean, I'm lucky that in a way that my daughter is old enough to talk about, how she feels and how her body responds to some foods. And She would say, for example, that broth was like sweeping all the bad things from her gastrointestinal tract. She said it's like a broom. I feel like when I'm drinking broth, it's like a broom.
Wow.
Yeah, so pretty powerful. So yeah,
Neat.
Yeah, she's told me a few times, some things are okay and some things are not, even if they're on the gaps, So it goes back to what you were saying about adapting the protocol to each individual.
And their needs at the time.
Yes, exactly.
Awesome. So we need to take our last break for the show today. So we'll go off and do that. If you need to jump up and use the bathroom or get yourselves a cup of tea or whatever you'd like to hear the rest of the story, go and do that. We'll be back in about 1 minute to connect more with Isabelle.
Opinions, options, answers. You're listening to Voice America Health and Wellness.
Do you have a child with chronic illness, autoimmune condition, or mental health issue? In just 7 weeks, you can start improving your child's health naturally. Deborah Morgan, the creator of Kids Health Revolution, will show you how to transform your family to a gut healing protocol in just 7 weeks, without all the time-consuming guesswork and hair-pulling frustration. All it takes is one small change each week to get there. Go to kidshealthrevolution.com for more details.
Can grief be good for you? Absolutely. It gets your attention, helping you evaluate your choices and relationships. Your losses define who you are. Tune in each week for Good Grief with host Cheryl Jones. Our show features those who have made incredible transformations by grieving their losses. You'll learn how to find your courage and strength. You'll discover the important things in your life and how to let go of things that are less important. Good Grief airs live Wednesdays at 2 p.m. Pacific Time, 5 p.m. Eastern on Voice America Health and Wellness.
Opinions, options, answers. You're listening to Voice America Health and Wellness.
This is Kids Health Revolution Radio with Deborah Morgan. To reach the program today, please call 1-866-472-5792. That's 1-866-472-5792. Or send an email to Deborah@DeborahMorganConsulting.com. Now, back to Kids Health Revolution Radio.
Hello and welcome back. You are here with Deborah Morgan on Kids Health Revolution Radio. We are talking to Isabelle today, and she is very generously sharing her time to tell her story about how she helped her child with debilitating eczema. And just before the break, we were talking a little bit about the diet and a little bit about how her daughter was really good at, because she was a little bit older, at being able to identify, what was going on for her body, and how, that helped her sort of tailor a dietary protocol so that it was really exactly what it needed to be for her. So a question popped up for me while you were talking about that, Isabelle, and that was, does your daughter talk about her experience with other people?
No.
No, she doesn't.
No, she only does if we are together and if I start the conversation. And it's not that I make her do it, but I encourage her to share her story, but she doesn't want to talk about it.
Okay, interesting.
I think that she doesn't. She's very humble, and she doesn't want people to think, oh, it's great what you've done, or because she feels like some people have had it worse than she has.
Okay.
And she's very low key about it. We talk about it sometimes, but not in great detail.
Mm-hmm. Okay, interesting. She's just very private about it, and that's okay.
Yeah, she just now. I mean, at the time, it was because she didn't want people to feel sorry for her, and she didn't want to have to justify herself. And now, I think because she changed schools again, She just wants to be a normal teenager, living a normal life, and just, enjoying her life.
Of course. Yeah. And that's totally understandable. Is she still on the GAPS diet?
Yeah, she's on the GAPS probably 80% of the time. And then 20%, she will make some exceptions, but like not processed food, just, when I say exceptions, it will be, things like chickpeas, quinoa, sweet potatoes. Very occasionally, she will have some fries. But she's quite good. She still drinks broth every day.
Great.
So yeah, she's still pretty much on the GAPS.
Okay. And so, it sounds like her body's gotten to a state, the gut healing has gotten to a place where she's able to make some of those exceptions and still maintain balance.
Yep, absolutely. She's never had one flare-up in a year now.
Wow. That's amazing.
Yeah.
Really great.
I'm really proud of her.
So, and you should be. Yeah, it's amazing. So let's talk a little bit about your journey, on the GAPS diet. If you can kind of take our listeners through that, how, where you started with it, how long it took before you saw, some major improvements and that kind of thing.
Okay, so some people are going to get very depressed after that, but as far as improvements are concerned, it took a whole year being on a strict GAPS before seeing any improvement on the skin. However, there were huge improvements on the rest of her health. Moods, you've read the blog, so she was quite depressed.
Yes.
So moods, being able to play sports, focus at school, that sort of thing. So that got better before the skin got better. But
so the skin must have gotten a little bit better for her to be able to get back into sports.
Yeah. Well, the inflammation calmed down. So the skin. The skin was not bleeding so much, but the inflammation had calmed down. So she was less hot, because I sometimes I said to her that I could cook bacon on her arms and legs. They were so hot. That was, so those things happened first. And I started the GAPS full on. Completely full on. Once I made that decision, I just chucked away a lot of my foods, and I bought, grass-fed bones. I bought lots and lots of vegetables. And I just started following some recipes, and it was horrible. It was really, really painful. But, it was trial and error. Some things were okay. Some things were disgusting. It took me about 2 months to figure out a way to make pancakes that she would actually eat.
Okay.
Because she doesn't like bananas, and everything that you can find in the GAPS recipes is made with bananas. So that was a bit of a challenge. But but otherwise, it was once you're in it, you probably can relate to that. Once you're in it, it becomes your way of life, and you kind of forget how you used to cook before, really.
Yes, absolutely. I don't think I could whip up a pasta salad now if you paid me $100. But so did you went through the intro stages of the diet? Is that right?
That was later, actually, because Dr. Natasha said that when the person is constipated, you start with the full GAPS. And when they are better and they've got proper bowel movements, then you can do the intro. So that's what I did, because she was severely constipated. So we had to wait for a few months, probably even a year, I would say, before we could do the intro. And we did the intro, and it was quite easy, actually, quite quick. A
lot of healing had taken place before you started that, probably.
Exactly. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Exactly.
Perfect. So, I agree with your statement that, some people are going to be a little bit depressed after that, but, it's, a year it sounds like a long time, but really it's not that long. And when I first started this journey, I went to a functional medicine doctor with my son who put us on this specific carbohydrate diet. And he told me 3 months, which I really clung on to. Like, it was like, okay, I can do 3 months, right? But, and then as you said, once I was in it, it was like, well, this is fine. And I went back and he's like, well, good, we're making some progress. Let's keep it up, of course. And then a year went by, and it almost to the mark of the year was when we took a second picture of his spot, and we saw some pretty dramatic improvement in the repigmentation of his spot. So it did take that time, and it has continued to get better over time, but this is not a quick fix. I think as a Chinese proverb, or I'm not sure what it is, but it says something about that illness comes galloping in on horseback but leaves on foot. So it's which is sort of accurate, right? It's not really like it starts so suddenly, but the symptoms show up suddenly, it seems. And then, it's a very slow process to bring the body back to balance. But, just taking those first few steps, and if you can just commit to 3 months, 6 weeks of trying something, once you're in the swing of it, and once you start to see some other things, like you said, her mood's improved, her ability to play her sports, once some things start to come online, it encourages you to keep moving forward.
Absolutely.
And that was my experience too. It took a year before we saw a difference in the vitiligo, but my son got sick. If somebody 4 houses down from us had a cold, he would get it. So I think he was sick every couple of weeks. And when we started doing a dietary protocol, that changed. And his health was better, and I started to see improvements with that. And I was like, okay, something is happening here, and we've got to carry on with this. So
that's brilliant.
Yeah. Now, I know you have other children. Were they on the diet with you as well, or were they kind of going along with their lives and just you and your daughter were doing it?
Absolutely not. No. They didn't want to know. They did not want to know. No, my eldest daughter, she's vegetarian, and she couldn't keep away from the pasta and her bread and, her stuff. And my son plays a lot of football, and he needs, that's what he says, but he wants his carbohydrates. He wants his pasta, he wants his rice, he wants his potatoes. So there was no way they were going to be on the diet. So that's why I was on the diet with Victoria, actually, to give her that support.
That's great. And I think that's so important. That's something that you and I talked about during the break, and I did that with my son as well. And at home, because my son's an only child, it's a little bit easier. We're, 100% paleo gaps at home. But, just even having that one person, that support that's with you, I think is so vital. And I think another reason as a mom, or as the parent who's the instigator of this, to do it with your child, at least for a time, is to get the experience of what it feels like, right?
Yeah, I agree with that completely.
And how you feel in your body.
Because otherwise you can't talk about it.
Right. Yeah, you cannot identify with what they're going through unless you are experiencing it as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's a great opportunity for us to improve our own health.
It's always good to do what you recommend your patients, because if you can't do it, surely they won't be able to either. So it's important to be on that journey with them. Yes,
I agree. Yeah, to walk your talk, as they say.
I think so.
Well, this has been amazing, Isabelle, and I had so much more that I actually wanted to chat with you about, but we'll maybe have to do a follow-up or do a blog post or something together, because we have flat run out of time. It always happens to me. So I thank you so much for sharing your time and your wonderful story.
Thank you so much for the opportunity. Thank you so much.
You're very welcome, and I look forward to connecting with you again. Thanks again.
Me too. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to Kids Health Revolution Radio. Please join your host, Deborah Morgan, again next Wednesday at 11 a.m. Eastern Time, 8 a.m. Pacific Time on the Voice America Health and Wellness Channel. We'll talk to you again next week.